Hello and welcome to another episode of Transcontinental Overload. I'm Stephanie, your host, sitting at my desk in Austin and looking out onto grey and rainy skies. Yes, we've had some rain and it's looking like the temperature is coming down slightly, which is lovely. I am so excited about today's episode, and in fact, I think it might be my favorite so far, although I can't really say that because I love talking to my guests so much. But this one is definitely top 3 material. And I realize it's a very long episode, but if you don't have the time or the energy to listen to it in one go, don't worry, just break it up. But please do listen. My guest today is the wonderful author Terry-Ann Wilson. And I'm really thrilled that we connected and found time to chat. And in fact, I have a feeling that we might have to record another episode at some point because we had so much to talk about and it was really difficult to narrow down the topics of conversation. Terry-Ann is Canadian by birth and about 2 years ago returned to Canada after 30 years of expat life. When she was in her 20s, she packed her hopes and dreams into a backpack and has lived and travelled the world ever since, together with her Scottish husband, whom she met just before she set off on her travels. 9 countries and 3 TCKs later, they have 3 sons together, and they are back in Terry-Ann's passport country, where they settled into a small mountain town. She says it's been the hardest transition so far, but she's finally accepted that she has repatriated and has even started to call it home. Her passion for travel, history, and culture led her to start writing a travel blog, Notes on a Boarding Pass, and she has also co-written the memoir Monday Morning Emails with fellow expat Joe Parfitt. This memoir, which is written as a weekly email exchange between the two women, chronicles Terry-Ann and Joe's family's journeys over the years, and it is a very raw and heartbreaking but also life-affirming read, and I thoroughly recommend it to any mother, not just expats. With all those countries under her belt, Terry-Ann obviously has thousands of stories to tell, and I guess we'll have to find time for another episode because we're actually talking more about what comes after expat life in today's episode. Of course, we also talk about writing, and in particular Monday Morning Emails, and how writing this book has meant so much to her and other expats. We discuss how important it is to create roots for your family, especially as an expat family. And then we delve into what comes after expat life and what it's like to repatriate after all those years and how to make peace with that. Because I find that repatriation is it's a topic that very often just gets ignored, and it's a huge topic mentally and emotionally. I was so moved and motivated and inspired by our conversation, and it showed me once more how important it is that we share our stories and to talk to somebody with so much experience who has really taken the time to reflect on her own past and decisions, and her attitude to life has been a real boost for me. What an inspiring woman. But enough from me. Let's hear Terry-Ann's story. Terry-Ann, I am so happy that you're here with me today. I'm beyond excited because you are a very special person in the expat world, and we'll talk about all of that with a lot of experience. And so welcome to this podcast.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about our conversation.
Well, in our preliminary chats, we established that we have a lot in common.
Absolutely.
And one of my very first guests on my podcast, Sarah Black, mentioned you and said that she learned how to expat from you. And I contacted you and we started a little conversation. And from then on, I read your book and we will talk about your book. But why don't you tell us, it kind of feels strange to say in a nutshell because You have so many years of expat living
Right.
under your belt, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Okay, I'd love to. That's a good start, I imagine, of course. So I was uh, raised in southern Alberta in Canada, and a small town. To be honest, I left the small town as soon as I could. I packed up my 77 Camaro and drove to the big city of Calgary, which was at the time just seemed, I think I've written that I drove to the rest of my life. I just knew there were other things that I wanted to do. I worked in advertising, and but I did start traveling very early on, and to Europe and to Asia. And fast forward about 7 years, and I had saved money for 3 years to do a world traveling backpacking trip. Just
That sounds
before,
great.
it was great. Just before, however, this tall, dark, handsome fellow comes into the bar I was working in. I always worked part-time as a
Mhm.
cocktail waitress. That was my travel fund money. And he is now my husband of 30 years. But in any case, I've given away the plot there, Stephanie. But I was set to leave. I sold my sports car, gave up my apartment, gave up my advertising job, gave it all up, put my hopes and dreams in a 55-liter backpack with a one-way ticket to Asia. I think I landed in Hong Kong and then Bangkok. And Bruce had asked if he could travel with me for a couple of months. We had dated a little
Ooh,
bit.
that's a good sign.
Mm. And so 2 months turned into 6 months, and here we are. Very long story short. So you certainly get to know someone very well when you're with them 24/7 in often extenuating circumstances. We fled Tiananmen Square. We were involved in
Wow.
Tiananmen Square, and actually we were on the last train that left Beijing,
Wow.
and we just stayed together. And after that, we only had enough money remaining for one more ticket,
Hmm.
and neither of us wanted to go home. And so we bought a ticket to Tokyo, and we ended up teaching English in Japan for 2 years. And during that time, we came back to Canada, we married, and since then, we've lived in, I guess, 10 countries.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So that's it. That's how it all started.
Wow. I love that that he was up for traveling right from the start. So obviously that sounds like a good sign.
He had been
Um,
traveling. He had actually just been working in Africa, and
okay.
had been
Oh.
traveling through Turkey and had met quite a few Canadians.
Mhm.
And so he was a traveler as well, which was
Yeah.
fabulous.
So you started in Japan and it was just the two of you.
Just the two of us, and we stayed. We actually lived in a very authentic Japanese place with tatami mats and
Hmm.
shoji doors, and it was lovely. It was in the wrong part of town. The
Hmm.
yakuza lived there, but we didn't care. It was very authentic. After that, we were actually our first son was a honeymoon baby, and so we realized we had to kind of get serious with life. So we moved to the Netherlands, and Bruce started working again as an engineer, as he was
Hmm.
already. And so after that, it was, and if I ever forget this, I tell my husband this is my dementia test. So 2 years in Japan, 2 years in the Netherlands, 2 years in Scotland, quick 6 months in Canada. We thought we were coming back home, and
Hmm.
came home with
Hmm.
no job, two young children. And not long later, he was recruited to go to the Middle East. So I was thrilled.
Hmm.
We were both excited. Our parents couldn't believe what we were doing. We had actually just come home. But off we went
Yeah,
to
it happens.
Qatar. Yes, it does.
Hmm.
So off we went to Qatar for 4 years.
Hmm.
Houston for a short 1 year. That's a long story. Back to Oman for 3 years. So back to the Middle
Wow.
East with three small children. And Oman for 4 years, then Houston for 6 years. Yes.
Okay.
And
Wow.
then Norway for 4 years, Kazakhstan for just almost 2, and India for 2.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like quite the selection. It sounds like you've lived on almost every continent. I mean, that
Exactly.
is amazing. But also, that's a lot of transitions.
A lot of transitions.
It's almost like I always want to say that 2 years that's not quite enough to really get to know a place or feel settled even. But with 4 and then 6 years, that's a whole different story. Did you
Mm-hmm.
always feel like you were going to move on, or did you at some point in any of those places feel like, oh, I could stay here?
I was quite upset when I'm actually half Dutch. And so we were living in this
Hmm.
beautiful town in the Netherlands where our first son was born. And we had bought a house already, our first place. And so I definitely planned on staying there. And before I knew it, Bruce had a job in Scotland, and off we went after only 2 years. I was quite annoyed with that move, definitely. Going from, riding my bike every day with the baby in the front to suddenly being in windswept
Oh yeah.
Aberdeen. Uh, but what can you do? So those 2 moves were quite quick.
Mm.
When you mentioned the 6 years, actually that came at a good time because the boys were older and they were in junior high school.
Oh,
And
so they
so
could finish.
exactly.
Um,
And as we all know in the expat world, you're always trying to balance your moves with your children's schools, what years and different
yes.
stages of school. And when you have 3, of course, it's that much more difficult.
Oh my god, there's not one good time for all of them. So you're going to struggle with, or at least one of them will struggle with a transition.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's a whole subject in itself, I
It
guess.
really
And
is.
trying to coordinate moves with your children. Yeah, I mean, if someone has a magic, I don't know, recipe, then I think that you'd be made in the expat world. I think everybody
Exactly.
would be very happy. Um,
I I think something that I wrote, which rings true with a lot of people, is that we gave our children the world, but not a hometown.
mhm,
And of course, that's partly what happened with
mhm.
all of these moves, and that comes with all of
Yeah.
its issues as well, of course.
Yes, that's a huge issue and something. I mean, that's something that my husband and I discuss a lot too, and we'll get back to that.
Hmm.
Um, you mentioned writing. So I've obviously, once I was introduced to you, I went on your website and I have all the links in my show notes. And you have a blog too, the notes
Hmm.
on a boarding pass. And for anyone who's interested in all those countries and all your stories, can find you on that blog and read all about your life.
And sadly, not all of it, because my blog is only 6 years old. So I do some kind of retro posts
Hmm.
where I will reminisce, but I did not start my blog until we moved to Kazakhstan, which happened to be a great place
Hmm.
because we lived in a hotel, and so I didn't have a lot of housework to do or anything, and empty nester,
Yeah.
and all day all I
Mm.
got to do was write. It was fabulous, and that was when I started my blog. So that's 6 years ago.
That's 6 years ago, so it's really fairly young. And before that, it
Mm.
was I think you mentioned somewhere that you were just writing letters home and kept journal, and so you were always writing.
Absolutely. And Bruce and I connected. Definitely, we connected on that, with that as well. I remember nights when we were backpacking and all we would have would was a
Hmm.
candle and our notebooks, our journals. So we both kept very,
Yeah,
very. We took copious notes,
yeah. That's
and so
what treasure really to have.
yes,
I always think when I first left Germany, I did not write down my experiences. I moved to the UK in my mid 20s, and um, just by when I started writing and keeping a journal later on, I realized how many things you forget. You think you will never forget certain things, but unless you really write them down, a lot just
So very
goes.
true. And the joy of it now is that my
Mm-hmm.
parents, Bruce wrote to his parents, I wrote to mine, and they kept all of the postcards and letters. And
Oh,
so we have all
amazing.
of those now, so we can go
Yeah.
back and read them, and it will bring back
Yes.
different memories, or as you say, incidences we had forgotten about, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So writing, I would say, has been instrumental in my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it started with, as you say, writing letters, keeping journals. And in these latter years, I don't think I could have done this without the serendipity and the joy of my blog,
Mm-hmm.
and that the purpose that it has given me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how writing can do that. And when you talk to people who have chronicled their lives consciously or subconsciously, just to have something else, realize how much of a companion your journal or your blog can be, and how it helps you process all those transitions and
Definitely.
impressions. And I also cringe sometimes when I read back, read things that I wrote 10 years ago and my first impressions of a place, and then I read it and I think, oh my goodness, why did I see it like that? And then apply your more
Mhm.
experienced lens on it, and it's just so interesting to just follow yourself on your journey in a way, and have
Very
have
true,
have
Stephanie.
it.
That's a lovely way of putting it.
While we're on the subject of writing, of course, we have to talk about Monday morning emails, your memoir that you wrote with Joe Parfit.
Mhm.
And for those listeners who are not familiar with your book, on the cover, the short description is 6 months, 12 countries, 1,000 thoughts. Two mothers share the journey of living a global life. I absolutely adored that book, and
Thank you.
it made me, I cried while reading it because it resonated so much, but I also laughed, and
Good to hear.
it's so honest and raw, and a wonderful idea. And can you tell us a little bit about the book and how it came about?
Yes. So Monday morning emails is, I like to think of it, besides the therapeutic nature of it, it's also about our friendship, Joe and I. But that friendship embodies the friendships in a global life that we make, that we all live, and many of us in different countries. And so this has been particularly a joy, because Joe and I met, actually I went to one of her writing workshops that happened to be in Tuscany, Lent, and I came about Joe, knowing about Joe through the lovely Sarah Black, which you mentioned at
How
the start.
amazing.
Yes, she actually lent me a book that that Joe had published,
Hmm.
and I signed up for her website, and sure enough, it came to be that she was advertising a writing retreat in Tuscany. Now, I lived in Norway at the time, so it's just a quick jaunt to Norway.
Oh, I'm
So
so
I
jealous.
had it was fabulous. So we became friends, and we had a lot in common. We both have sons. Our husbands both worked for the same oil company. We had lived in a lot of the same countries, and the friendship grew. And then I worked with Joe with FIGT, which is how, of course, a lot of our global friends are formed, and at the wonderful conference each year. And we got to a point where we had done a few retreats together, and then we actually worked on a book project together in Malaysia, in Penang. So we had spent quite a lot of time in Penang together. It's like a little hometown to both Joe and I. It's another long story, but in any case, it came to the point where, this was in 2018, actually in 2017, we were both experiencing a lot of issues and transition in our life. And I think we were on a Skype call one day. I was living in India. She was still in KL at the time. And I think we just said something like, let's start writing to each other. And Monday, we did do it on a Monday. Yes, that is correct. It wasn't always Monday morning.
Well,
And
probably for one of you it was living in different time
exactly.
zones.
It could have been Sunday afternoon, with the wine. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. In any case, it wasn't long maybe 2 or 3 emails, and we realized that we were bringing up such intense topics, and the subjects were varying so organically. We hadn't planned on anything that we were going to write about. And so quite early on, and of course, Joe being a publisher thought, this really, this could possibly become a book. The real point of it was the therapeutic nature of it, definitely.
Yeah.
And hopefully we've passed that on with the readers, and the sense that, or the fact that we have the experts in the back of the book that weighed in on some of the topics we talked about.
It's a wonderful setup. So if you're not familiar with the book, it's it's almost like the expert advice or just a little snippets that you include. They come at exactly the right time, like in between the chapters, and you can go back through the book and look at them. And I love how it's like the glue in between that fits in. And when I read it, it almost felt like you were writing to each other, and yes, as you said, using it as a kind of form of therapy. But it almost felt like it wasn't just you writing and Joe writing. There was all these women's voices, expat women's voices in
Wonderful,
there with
wonderful.
you. That's how I felt. And
One of the things I've been very pleased with, and I'm sure Joe as well, is the fact that through the years, this was published 2 years now already, 2 years ago, but I've also heard from a lot of people that have not been expats, that are not expats. And for example, even some people in my local neighborhood that have read it and said, it really relates to all of us.
I was just going to say that, because it's this, and this is very typical female position also to be in. I think we get to this age where our children have gone through the school years and are embarking on a professional life, and or it's still the end of the school years, and I'm talking school in terms of high school.
Yes.
Or they're in their 20s and they're trying to find themselves. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have the parents who are getting older and starting their issues that you need to attend to. So we're the in between. So we have to deal with both ends.
This sandwich generation, I believe we're called.
You see it happen everywhere. I just feel like as expat women, we have so many more layers in there.
It's a nice way of putting it. And not only that, we tend to think that when our children are young and their school years are just, those are the easy years. In fact, it gets really quite complicated when they do become young adults and they set on their path. And to the praises of the book, I'm pleased. I'm very pleased about that aspect of it, that it does relate, as you say, to mothers and to people. That transition, remember, people transition within their own country as well. It does not have to be globally, to experience the issues that it entails.
There's something relatable in all of that. But
yes,
the format of the book with the letters, I think, is just really beautiful, because you get those two perspectives, and they come with all these other voices, as I said. And it's obvious how much you're helping each other with this. And that's also something I love, because, and as you said before, the expat community is a very special one. And having someone, even if they're on a different continent in a different time zone, know exactly what you're going through, and having the right words for it is so precious.
I think that has been one of the messages that has come through from people that have read it, is that it made me feel that I'm not the only one going through these issues. And your life, our life as expats, can look fairly glamorous from the outside.
Well, I guess it's the fact that we always look like we're just doing something new.
And exactly, and coping with it so effortlessly. But no,
yes,
we're not.
no, we're not.
No.
But yes, absolutely. It's and I've always said this is one of the biggest dilemmas, because we're getting used to these transitions and dealing with them. We, as you said, seem to be doing it effortlessly, but in fact we're not. And the biggest dilemma for me is always, it's almost like I wish I could pack 2 or 3 lives into this one. So I try and to be in two places at the same time, at least, always. And so you're in one place and you always miss another. It's part of who you become, your persona, there, that you never fully in one place and feel like you've arrived.
Correct.
And
Correct.
and that's something you have to learn to live with, because it's not going away, I don't think.
You know, I have to say that the expats now that are halfway through their journey, for example, like you may be, where it looks as if ours is completed, has been completed. But when we started out on this journey, there weren't any books, there weren't conferences.
God, no.
Exactly. So, you know, if I'm really honest, I didn't even realize I had TCKs until I went to the first FIGT conference that I was a part of. I was one of the writers, and I thought, oh my gosh, those are my kids. And that explains that explains this. And yet what's interesting is my boys did not, when I actually came home and told them, they did not want to be labeled with that in any way, shape, or form. And so I think there is so much more valuable information now, and resources, speaking, which is fabulous. And Monday morning emails is a small part of that, but there are a lot of fabulous books out there.
Yes, and I love that whether it's teens or in their 20s, there are groups for them to find, and people who've basically been moved around by their parents all their lives without their decision, their input, really, if you think about it. I mean, it's, we drag them all over the place. Sometimes, of course, we ask them, but more often than
really
not,
they don't have a say in it.
It's us as parents who make the decisions, and that alone is a big thing for them to deal with, and to find that there's a whole community of people with the same backgrounds.
But having said that, I've just jotted down a few things in my notes, is that by giving them this life and dragging them around as we do, they do gain a lot of skills from that: resilience and cultural awareness and acceptance, and just, I think, the joy of life and discovery. I know my children have that, although, to be fair, one of them doesn't really want to get on a plane probably ever again, but that's a whole other story.
Oh yeah, I can see that totally.
Yes. And so that's one thing that does come through in the book, is we can, as parents, we can have guilt for what we have given, the life we have given our kids. One comment that was particularly profound to me is someone who read the book and said, you made the decisions you did at the time the best that you could, and there should be no guilt. We do our best as parents.
Yes.
Ours just happened to be a little bit more grander, perhaps, our decisions.
Complex, definitely.
Complex, yes. Yeah. Complex is a better word than grander, because they're not always grand. And so forgiveness comes through a lot, I think, in what people have written to us. The feedback is, you've taught me, or you've showed us, that we need to forgive ourselves at times for a decision that we are still questioning. Yeah.
And I think guilt is the hardest thing for parents in general, with anything your children, your difficulties your children have. I feel even when children, the younger they are, the less forgiving they are. But as they get older, I mean, at least I hope so, one day they'll be like, oh, I'm so glad we did that at the time, even though I might not have recognized it as such. But I too feel like they've been given skills that they might not even be aware of yet, and
definitely
they have them. And it's you only have one life, and like you said, we do what we can at the time, whatever seems right in the moment. And especially when you have more than one child, it's impossible to make everyone happy all the time. It's
and what's interesting, impossible. And you can have, like, for us, 3 sons who they each graduated on a different continent or a different country, private school. One went to a boarding school. We laugh a little bit in our house because our oldest son graduated in Houston, and you know, their grad party was to Galveston, for example, and our youngest son graduated international school in Stavanger in Norway, and you know, they went to France or Spain, wherever it was. He's like, come on, I really lost out on that. I would have loved that. You had me in Texas at the time. So it's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it just shows how it's so individual for everyone. But again, to have more than one child, to think about how I was going to word this, and all their different living experiences, it's even more important that you have, and you bring them together in some way. So you have, as a family who doesn't have a one place that they know or go back to, it's incredibly hard to create that, I think, as a family, to have something that everyone can relate to and see that this is who we are. Because I've always thought, no, it's the people, so it's us, and we're creating this regardless of where we are. But more recently, I've come to realize that you also need some kind of physical location.
Well, this is a particularly interesting topic to me, you know, what home is, and the physical aspect of home. And we can talk about this forever, but I'm pleased with what we did. And I know, and I'll explain that in a moment, but I know a few people that read the book confided in me that after reading it, they realized they needed a home base, that they weren't giving their children a home base, especially when you have couples. I think yourself included, my husband and I, we're from two different countries.
Yes.
And we early on decided that Canada was we gravitated more towards Canada. Our children became Canadian citizens, so they later in life they became British citizens as well, which is they're pleased with, of course. Nonetheless, we spent more time in Canada. Wherever we were in the world, we would come home to my parents' acreage, and for a long time that was where my children learned how to be Canadian, was on my parents', we call it the farm, and it was wonderful. That's where their cousins were. But about 12 years ago, we realized while we were living in Houston that we needed a home base. It's, you know, not that cool to drag 3 teenagers home to grandma and grandpa's all the time.
You know, this is what we're going through at the moment. So my one just turned 18, but the other one's 14, and we have exactly the same. They have my parents are in southern Germany, and my husband's parents are in southeast England, and those two places are home for my kids. They're the home base. They go back there and they feel like, and that's where they're German, and that's where they're English. That's where
Wonderful.
that comes through. But it's exactly that. What we need, a place for just us.
And you know why, Stephanie? It just has occurred to me as you were saying that, it's partly because as a family, you need to start your own traditions. So it's one thing to be in another, and even though they're family in other people's homes, but you need to create ideally that home where you can start having your own traditions and your own space, and that place where they can start building some roots. It doesn't mean they're going to live there.
Yeah. Oh, yes. But
or even that you will live there. So what we did, we decided to, we chose this small mountain town that we're now in, and it is a fabulous place, I admit. We'll talk more about later. But
mountains of Western Canada sound pretty nice to me.
I look out to a ski hill. We have a golf course across the other side of the street and the other side of the Rockies, and we have lakes surrounding us. It is a fantastic community. So we chose that 12 years ago and had this house built, but it was only meant to be a vacation place. And yet the roots that we have formed, the memories that we have formed here and have experienced here, have been crucial, I believe, to our family remaining close. And you pointed this out a little bit earlier, is if you don't have that home, how do you do that once your kids get older?
Yes.
We've been particularly ardent in making that a priority. So we would at times meet in different countries. For example, when we lived in India, our last posting, we dragged everyone to India for Christmas. So there were 7 of us, including 2 girlfriends, traipsing around India. It was fabulous. And the real joy of it is not just at the time, but now we'll be sitting around, having a lovely dinner, and those conversations come up of what happened and whatever. So we need to make sure we're forming family bonds and memories all along the way, especially once your children get older as well.
And do you feel that is particularly important when you don't have that one physical family home, that you make sure that you always make time for those gatherings of whether it's friends and family, but you always, because I feel that's what we've done. We've really made that our focus, and we've gone back to Europe every summer from the States, and maintained those connections and made time for everyone and gathered people around just to have again, that's the people, not the location necessarily. But I feel I couldn't have done this expat life. I couldn't have done it without that, and without making that our focus.
And that's wonderful. And we did a lot of that at my parents, for example, when we lived in Qatar and Oman. They came to see us for a month at a time.
So important.
So important, wonderful. And they saw our life and the children's lives on the ground, so to say. But I also find the older they've gotten, how much we value the time just with them. And that doesn't mean we don't love our extended family, but it's just fabulous just being with them alone as young adults. And it could be here, it could be there, it could be anywhere, but we've put particular effort into doing that.
And so now you said you bought that house, or built that house, and it was meant to be only a holiday home. So, but you've been there for 2 years now.
2 years.
So
are we talking about repatriation
what
already?
happened?
Oh, no.
I guess we are, because I mean, like it or not, you've been back in your passport country for 2 years. And
it's so interesting. Let's back up just a little, because when you start out on that global journey and you're in these different countries and you're traveling, I don't really think you have a true understanding that one day it's going to come to an end.
No.
you know it must, but you don't think of the situation of it happening, or what it's going to entail, all the implications of it. And so 30 years, it was quite incredible. And I like to say, and this is my excuse for my repatriation woes, is that I really believe my brain has been wired to move, to always be moving, to always be exploring, to always know there's something around the next corner, that next adventure.
That resonates so much with me.
Right?
I've even put on my website, I think I was born with a nomadic gene. I put that in there.
Oh, I know I was. And it's a thing, that gene exists.
Yes.
So when that reality comes in our preliminary discussion, we talked about this, and I will bring this up, is my husband was with a large company, and his passion became renewable energy and sustainability. And this happened, I would say, about 5 years ago. And he had quite a prominent position when we lived in India, which is partly why we got to travel so much. He had teams in different Asian countries, which was fabulous, because of course I tagged along on his business trips. And but he just felt that he wanted to do something else. He wanted to achieve something different in the renewable energy milieu while he was, before he retired. So he took early retirement from Shell. We were with Shell. We had a lot of very good years with Shell. He took early retirement, and we talked about it endlessly. And yes, I gave my blessing. And And yet I had no idea I would react the way I would, that I have, with mourning the loss
Mm-hmm.
of the expat life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is even with someone who's a traveler like myself. So the past 2 years, even though we have not lived in another country,
Mm-hmm.
I had done before COVID a lot of traveling. I was away last year for 3.5 months between Asia and Europe. And so it was still a part of my life,
Mm-hmm.
traveling and doing what I do and exploring and writing about it. And then, of course, because of COVID, it came to a
Mm-hmm.
halt for many of us. And I know with the sad situation with COVID, I know I don't have a lot to complain about. Absolutely. And yet, COVID changed a lot of things for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people. And for me, it has finally made me be home and accept home.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Because it sounds like you went home, but
Mm-hmm.
because of being able to travel and do all your various things around the world, you didn't really have to confront that situation. You didn't really have to say, this is it now. It sounds like you were kind of maybe postponing that.
It was half a
And
conversation.
yes.
Uh, so what's interesting, Stephanie, is again this morning I was going through some of my writing. Now, just to back up a bit, Joe and I have a site called Monday Morning. It's Monday
Mhm,
Morning Emails. We have a
mhm.
site, and about a year ago, we started writing Monday Morning Musings. And so we were writing musings each Monday.
Oh, I love
We
it.
we haven't. Have you not been on that?
I haven't, I
Oh
haven't, I
my
haven't
gosh.
looked at that. That I have to
You
do that.
must.
No, I've,
Now,
yeah.
to be fair, we haven't written for about 5 months, and I will pick it up again. I'm not sure
Mhm,
if Joe is, she's in transition at the moment. Nonetheless, I looked back to see some of my writing because I partly chronicled
mhm.
this repatriation, of course. And also on that, Joe and I have still been writing Monday morning emails to each other sporadically now,
Mhm.
but that's how therapeutic we have found our writing to each
Oh,
other.
I
That
love that.
we still do write to each other.
Yeah,
Isn't that wonderful?
that's absolutely wonderful. Yeah.
And partly that is because of my repatriation and
Mhm,
so something that I jotted down here on November in 2018. So we had only been back from India a couple of months, and I wrote about learning to weave two lives, and I said I almost put myself in quarantine when I went away on a trip. I would not, I'd come home and I would not even unpack because that was admitting that that journey was over. Does anyone else do that? I don't unpack for a week. No, there's still the suitcase. Um, and then, but it was the writing of how I was so desperately trying to weave two lives. And of course, in weaving those lives, one of the difficulties, as we all know as an expat, is this persona that we have, this identity that we have of being a traveler living overseas.
yeah.
Most of us are quite pleased with that.
It's
Let's be honest.
well, you kind of you have to, because you if you're born with that gene, let's call it that, that
Mm-hmm.
nomadic gene, then you know you are that person, and then you become that person really
Yes.
fully,
And you like that person
and
and
you
you
like that
you love what
person.
that exactly.
Yeah, and you kind of you get to know yourself very well when you're an expat, I think,
I've
because of all
pulled
the different transitions and things that you have to go through. So,
and unique experiences
and
and
unique experiences.
I've pulled up a quote quickly from Monday
Oh,
Morning Emails, and
fabulous.
it's by Ruth Van Raken, of course. Those we all know who Ruth Van Raken is, and the
And
wonderful
I
work
will
that
link to
she's
her
done.
in the show notes too.
Wonderful. She was one of our experts, and
Mhm.
one of the large quotes you mentioned. We have these large quotes in the book that fill one page, and they're quite profound. And she said, "We wonder if traveling seems such a part of who I am. Who will I be if I stop moving?
Mhm.
This is a critical time in life to double check our basic sense of identity and to continue discovering what it means to be me."
Yeah. Yeah.
That could not be more true.
I'm getting
Would you like me to
goosebumps.
do chills?
I'm getting
Exactly.
goosebumps right now. It's
Spot on.
exactly um and it's that, because I mean, to me, to be perfectly honest, I mean, so many people have said to me along the way, oh, especially now the situation in the US and the UK too, to
Mhm.
some extent, it's like, well, just come back to Germany. And the thought terrifies me. And then I have to question, why am I so scared of that? And why is that such a, and people say, what, I would move to Germany in a heartbeat. And I was like, no, I'm not. I don't know who I am when, or who I will be when I do that.
Oh
So,
gosh. And
mm,
this is repatriation, is that it strips you to your core.
mm-hmm,
Uh, I had no idea how naked I would become.
mm,
Do you know it? You feel naked. You question everything you've done. You hold on to everything you've done
yeah,
as if it's something else. I wrote is that I was clinging on to it like a precious baby. And just I got to a point where I could hold it and just remember and be thankful and let it bring me contentment and joy and wonderment. And I wrote this about India, saying, confessing to myself that I got to live in India. How many people get to live there? But instead of it being grief and longing, just wrap it up and say, wow, I did that. And that is part of repatriating, is learning to be thankful for what you did, uh, but also you just have to move on, and it's
mm-hmm.
painful.
And I think, I mean, that obviously it sounds like that is the biggest transition
Mm-hmm.
of them all,
The
because
biggest except moving to
biggest,
Houston from
okay.
Oman.
Well, that's probably a
but
very different topic.
no,
I have
no,
to say,
no.
moving to Austin is just around the corner, really, in terms of distances, maybe not, but
We digress. We digress.
but that's,
Sorry about
hey,
that.
no worries. But it's definitely, yeah, a massive transition. But um is it, I mean, and part of this letting go and accepting and kind of looking back on it in a, having that warm glow instead of that longing, that hole in your heart where you're just like, you miss that place so much, but instead of giving into that, you learn to accept. But part of that acceptance is grieving it, isn't it? So how,
Absolutely. Now, one of my worst moments, and I wrote to this Monday morning email to Joe privately.
mm,
I remember the summer we came home and I was unpacking. Our shipment had arrived, and I had a beautiful walk-in closet in India. We did live in a lovely apartment, and I was trying to squash everything, and I just had mounds and mounds of things. And those, kind of those Asian clothes, those dressy clothes that I'm not wearing those in a mountain
no,
pounds. And so I was going through all of that, and I do have a scarf collection. Anyone that knows me knows that. And so it was just all of this stuff, which all had meaning to me.
yes,
And then I came across my sari. So I had gone to a Indian wedding and I had bought a sari, and I had a breakdown of monumental proportion. And it was what the sari represented. It's not that I wasn't going to wear the sari again, that was fine, but it was that life, that
mhm,
an occasion might arise where you get to wear sari. And so it's what it represented. And I remember it was probably 30 degrees, a hot July night. The neighborhood was buzzing, everyone was out. And I was upstairs with a mound of clothes and a glass of wine, bawling and
yeah,
crying like I never have before. And yet you have to let yourself go through those moments,
yeah,
because you can't get to the other side of feeling at peace
hmm,
unless you have those breakdowns.
it's almost like a very private
Yes,
grieving ceremony that you have
you're
to
pretty right.
have.
It is. My husband was particularly good. Bruce would, especially the first winter. I'm not a
Mm.
winter connoisseur. I don't really like winter, despite the
I
fact that I
hear
live in the States now.
you. No, I hear you.
Well, we've lived in hot countries for so long.
Ah,
But he was excellent in the fact that he would just let me cry. There were days when
mhm.
it just wasn't going to get any better. And he would just hug me and hold me and say, it's okay, just cry, be
Just
miserable. go
Yeah.
upstairs for the whole day. And
I love that. And that's a very special thing to have.
Mhm.
It's so important to do it and to let people do it. And I always feel that's something that that also goes for our children when they go through the
Absolutely.
transitions and the countries. And, you know, I mean, now there's a lot of coaches and experts that help with those transitions, but you know, with us, I think we didn't even acknowledge we kind of said, yeah, of course you're sad, but you're going to make so many new friends and think about all the amazing things you can do. And instead of going, yes, this really sucks. This is really hard,
This
isn't
is
it, to leave and to feel so sad and to kind of show them that you're sad too. And that's such an integral step.
it is. And I, looking back on it,
Mm.
I, I still feel, just talking about it there, I got
Mm.
emotional. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
gave
I mean
myself a
it's
hug just there, because I'm so thankful to feel better.
Mhm.
And let's remember, even through all of that time, I was still traveling. I
Yeah.
would be on trips and whatnot, and now I'm able to, well, we'll get to that in a moment, but a few things that I know helped me.
Mhm.
I and I wrote about it. I call it a wonder room. So I have upstairs a loft just before our bedroom, and I have my things that I particularly love. It could be stationery from Italy. It could
Mhm.
be my collectible fans from Penang, whatever it
Mhm.
is. And I look at them, and I treasure those things
Yeah.
as markers of where I've been. And sometimes we have to allow ourselves those joyful things
Mhm.
that will bring some painful memories, but eventually they'll be
Mhm.
more they'll be gladder memories, where you can walk past them and not burst out in tears.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet. I've got all that to come.
Oh yes.
Thinking of where
No.
we'll be. Who knows where we'll be? Our plans are kind of up in the air with, you know, with everything going on at the moment. It
Oh,
seems, and this is also with the COVID situation. I sometimes I feel it's brought me back to all those, I don't know, that my deepest self and those very raw emotions. And I don't know what it is about the situation that's made me reflect more, but there is something in that in the last 6 months that has definitely
definitely.
contributed to that.
But I think it
Mm.
should. I think something this tragic and potentially
Mm.
frightening should
Mhm.
make us question, and
Mm.
obviously be thankful for what we have and live each day,
Yeah.
and maybe reassess what we want to do and our priorities, and what else is it that we're dying to do. um, to go just I wanted to mention
Mm.
one situation of uh, finally coming out of all this. It was the first winter, and so we had moved in, uh, left India in April. We had done a lot of traveling and had come back to Canada in July. Everything had arrived, and then I think I did go back to Italy for a retreat that September. Sorry, but then I was home, and it was a very tough January, February, and March. And I remember what changed it. I had been, and this is important, how we find our coping and skills,
Mhm.
and also ways to fit into your new environment. I had been asked to do writing workshops. I give writing workshops, and I had done one in Kazakhstan and India already, and I had been asked to give them
Mm.
here, at our cultural center. And I just kept putting it off and putting it off. And the reason why is I didn't want to admit that I was suddenly a local, that I was here doing this. I wanted to keep popping in and popping. Oh, you're home, Terry Ann. How lovely. Where are you living now? Or where are you off? Oh,
Oh, yes.
enjoy your 2 months here, but you'll be off again. That was definitely part of my persona. I woke up one morning at the beginning of March, I think it was, and
Mhm.
I just said enough. And I knew that if I didn't do something to get involved with the community,
Yeah.
it was just going awry. And so I did, and organized a workshop. It was sold out. We had 20 people, far too many, which is lovely. And the people I met, the writers, the people, some had lived also overseas. And I would say that was the beginning of my flowering of
Oh, I
acceptance.
love that.
Of,
Mhm.
yes. And yeah, so sometimes we have to make ourselves do something that seems almost impossible. You'll resist it.
Mhm.
Yet I do feel that it's somewhere in your soul or in the back of your mind, if something is telling you to do it, it's likely for a reason, and that's what you
Mhm.
need to be doing.
So you need to listen to yourself.
You need to listen to your
Yeah.
inner self.
And I
Hmm.
guess, I mean, this again, you do get to know yourself through all those transitions, moving your family and everything. And you kind of, you do become, I think, better at listening to that voice.
Hmm.
It's whether you pay it attention or not is the other
Exactly.
it's the other thing.
And
But
you
you
can
obviously
ignore
had
it.
that moment
And
of, I need to pay attention to
attention.
that voice. And
The
that's,
universe is telling me
yes.
something. And
Yeah.
once I did that, I just met and I did another workshop at the end of
Mhm.
the year, and again more people came my way, and more kindred spirits, I guess would be the right way of saying
Mhm. I love that. So you always find your people wherever you are. You find your people.
it. Hmm.
It's so good to hear that you can find that sense of peace with yourself when, and this is not to say that you're not going to be traveling, right? This is
Right.
just,
My passport has now, actually July 26th was a bit of a milestone for me, and I was dreading it because I didn't know how I would react on the day. July 26th was the day I that marked the day I've been in Canada for 1 year straight without leaving. And
oh,
that hasn't happened since 1985. 1 year. Now, it doesn't mean I
hmm,
haven't traveled within Canada, but that's just unheard of course.
hmm,
And yet I have learned so much about myself. And one of my very good friends, Jillian, if you're listening, she lives in Dallas, actually
hmm,
close to you, Stephanie. You're in Austin. She said something they had been expats for years as well.
hmm.
And she said, you won't be able to truly adjust until you stop traveling and stay home for a while. And
Oh,
right. And actually she was correct. And that's what
hmm,
COVID has done.
hmm.
Hmm.
Yes. I mean, well, we traveled over New Year's, but that was the last time. And I've never spent a summer in the US the whole time we
It's
were
odd,
here.
isn't it?
So
Where you are.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's hot, and we traveled also within the States, but
But you're missing that connection
hmm,
back with
hmm,
Europe. I understand completely.
yes,
Yes.
completely. It's a very different, normally at this time of year I'm kind of full of energy that I got throughout the summer by
Mhm.
reconnecting, and I don't have it right now.
So true.
But then I'm also, my brain, I'm trying to really train my brain to look at the things differently, and to say, like, all the things I saw of this country this summer, I wouldn't have been able to. We wouldn't have been able to do them. And that I've actually not missed the plane, the flight. I don't like flying. I do it as a means to an end, but it's quite nice not to. So,
I've thought that myself a few times. There's also the realization now that it's not going to be the way it
mhm,
ever was again. Perhaps not. But I think it has made all of us reassess.
mhm.
And with us, it's actually kind of a particularly nice story. What's happened with COVID. And I guess middle of March, wasn't it, when most of us,
Mhm. Yeah,
when COVID
we're stopped in our
changed our
tracks.
lives. Exactly.
Mhm,
Changed our lives. So just to back up a little before that, so our oldest son had been living in Slovenia, and with his partner, they came back for Christmas, and lo and behold, in January, they actually bought their first small place in Kimberley, in our town. And so that was a surprise, lovely surprise. And
mhm,
there was a project then helping a little home renovation and whatnot. And so that was the first time we had lived in the same country with him for years and years. Then we comes along to the end of April, and our youngest son, Andrew, his story is quite poignant in the book. The fantastic news, he's just graduated, just got his degree at UBC. He did go back to university. He and his partner, Ayla, had been living in Vancouver. They then came to Kimberley because job losses, he had finished his degree. And so long story short, for the first time in 10 years, it's the first time in 10 years that we're all living in the same country. And now we are all in Kimberley.
That's amazing.
So it's amazing. So we have our entire family in our town, and a few of them in the house for a little bit. It has been such a blessing. We did a wonderful gardening project that we were all involved with. And so between the gardening and just being here and having all these family celebrations together, it has really helped, let's just say, further cement my repatriation. You are home now, girl, and you've got plants to water, and it's just been, it's been beautiful.
Yeah.
And so that has been lovely. The other thing is, we laughed a bit about this when I mentioned it when we first chatted, is that I finally succumbed to an e-bike.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a true
yes,
mountain girl now.
I love it. This is the only way I can actually go and ride a bike with my husband who rides bikes. And I don't. Yes. So I just I come along on the e-bike, and I don't have any issue with it.
Not at all.
It's been wonderful.
We live up a mountain, so I just, I was not.
Oh, how wonderful.
I can get back up the mountain.
Yeah.
So that has really been a great, helped us reconnect in our marriage. Not that it was fine, don't get me wrong, but suddenly you have more people around. Bruce is working on a new business, and so it's very easy just to everyone to kind of go about their own business and have probably that time together.
When you in your expat life, and especially when it's you are, I mean, I hate the expression, but when you're the trailing spouse who accompanies your partner on their assignment, and then they travel and they go off, and it's a very different dynamic. So I imagine being in the same place and with no
and he's working from home now.
And he's working from home. Yeah, so is mine. He's been home since February. It's a very different situation, and so you have to adjust to that. So,
and usually, often we spent a lot of our quality time together traveling in these lovely places. And so the e-bike has helped, and we started glamping. So those of you that follow me on social media, yes, we bought this brilliant safari tent, and to help celebrate our 30th anniversary.
That sounds amazing. And I am not a camper. My whole family makes fun of me. They've kind of said you should try glamping. So maybe
I can tell you how it's done, girl. It is it as well has been has just opened up a whole new world, and so a lot more quality time together, and just not just accepting that we're here and that I'm here, but reveling in it and taking advantage of.
It sounds like it. Sounds like you've made peace with your repatriation, and
have made peace
and found that side of yourself that is it. Yeah, it's part of you. You don't have to be that expat persona is still there. It's always part of you and will always be part of who you are. But I think I love the idea of embracing the complete you with that side of you as well.
That's a nice way of putting it. And sometimes you put part of your expat self, your persona, in a jar. I like to say I put it in a jar and put it up on a shelf.
Yeah.
And you don't get to bring it out all the time, and that's okay. It's maybe less now than it is than it used to be. You're not sitting at dinner tables with people from all over the world, for example. But that's all right as well. We have to learn to evolve and change.
Yeah, and sometimes maybe just look at the jar on the shelf and go, yeah, it was a good time. But maybe sometimes get it out and open it and show it. So I like that. It's such a
That's right.
beautiful image really to have.
Good, good.
So I always like to finish my episodes with um, something that you do when you miss another place so much that you have to do something in order to either just have just a nice memory, or not just that nice warm feeling inside, or maybe if you want to just, you feel like you need that connection with that place. Is there anything that you cook, or a tradition that you follow that
Well, it's a good
you like?
question. Uh, we started, uh, I think it was March, was the first time we did this for our son's birthday. We had an Indian evening, and I did don that sari, brought that out of the closet, which was lovely. We started travel replacement cuisine evenings. And so we'll do all, Indian theme or
I
Italian,
love that.
Greek, whatever. And it's just great for us all to have input in the dinner. All of us cook, which is wonderful. Maybe a chance to get dressed up, sit down, have a lovely table setting. And it's not that you're wishing you're somewhere else, but you're
reminiscing and
sure,
yeah.
exactly. So that has really worked for us well. And the other thing I do, and today is Friday, Stephanie, so good thing you asked. I have a thing I do, which is Serendipity Friday. I'm a firm believer in serendipity. A lot of my writing has been colored with serendipity of seeing that person or running into and something unexpected and grasping it and writing about it and exploring it. And so by Friday, I get quite antsy, and I try to do something unusual on Fridays. So a couple of Fridays ago, the girls and I went to a lavender farm. It's about an hour away, and we helped with the lavender harvest.
Oh, beautiful. I think I saw a picture on your
Oh,
Instagram. It must have been, yeah.
It was heavenly. And then last week we went to another ski town an hour away, and just wandered, and and so I encourage all of us to take that time to let something unexpected happen. And it's not traveling, that's all right. It's still appreciating where you are, because there is delight wherever you are.
That's
And
so
stories
true.
to be told, and things to discover.
I love that. I need to take that on board more. I need to be, because I can be so negative on my surroundings, especially August in Texas is not fun, but there are things to
there
do.
Are, and drag those kids out and say, this is what we're doing, even if it's twice a month. I really feel that's important, is to have input in ourselves, in our brain, and in our inner selves, of something that might inspire us and just cheer us up, bring us joy.
Oh, and we all need that, I think. And that's something that everyone can resonate with at the moment, because everyone needs cheering up in these times, with all that is going on. So I love what did you call them? Travel replacement cuisine evenings. I love that.
Serendipity Fridays.
I absolutely love that.
One last plug for lavender. I can honestly say, I'm sure that's not what you expected to hear, but lavender has been my go-to. Through all of this, I have gone upstairs with just some lavender, maybe a lavender pillow I have, and just 10 minutes of peace with lavender, and it's really been therapeutic for me.
Yes. And I remember just before we moved back to Austin, I was in the UK, and my friend dragged me to this lavender farm in southeast England. I didn't know that a place like that existed, and the pictures we took, it looked like southern France. And I still remember the smell and the different types of lavender and lavandine. So it's all these different types, and it's wonderful
therapeutic.
plant.
We were in Croatia last year in the lavender fields, and that was it. I mean, it's, as you say, with France. Or
how lovely to have that around the corner from you.
Go for the lavender, everyone. It's
very nice note to end on. Grab your lavender, and you'll be fine.
We'll heal the world with lavender.
Oh, thank you so much, Terry-Ann. That was.
Oh, thank you so much for having. But in the meantime, good luck with the rest of the summer. there.
The mornings and evenings are more bearable now. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. And
I know we could probably fill several more episodes, and maybe we will at some point. There's so much to talk about, but yeah.
Just a pleasure. Definitely, really a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that's it from me for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And if you want to find out more about Terry-Ann and her life, then please check the show notes. I have included all the links to the websites and her book and a few of the organizations and other things we talked about in this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and come check out my website, transcontinentaloverload.com. And maybe you feel like leaving a glowing review. I would really appreciate that. But for now, stay safe, keep wearing those masks, be kind to each other and yourself. Don't forget yourself. And see you next time.